Hi everyone, this is Ricky from Bromero Cards and I'm back this week for another card tutorial. At first we're going to go over the materials that we're going to use and then we will get started. Hello! So the first item we're going to be using today is the Concord 9th Lace Leafed Stamp Set. The next item we're going to use Arches Hot Press Paper at 4 inches by 5.5 inches. It's a watercolor paper. Then we're going to use a random cardstock color that's at 4 1/4 by 5.5 to match the card that we're going to be making. We're going to use a 110-pound card base made by Nina Solar White cardstock. We're also going to be using some Brusho today, which is some powder, really intense inked powder. It's going to be turquoise and black. We'll be using the Ken Oliver Metallic Sky ink as well. 3M foam tape for dimension. We're going to be using the rose gold embossing powder from the Ton Stamps, which is a really nice embossing powder. We're also going to be using a coffee filter and the EK Success powder tool for heat embossing today. We're going to use an acrylic block. We're also just going to use a water brush. Any one will be fine. Doesn't have to be a water brush. It could be any brush. We're also going to be using some water. You're going to see that I have some green water here. That's from working earlier today. We're going to use a distress sprayer as well to wet the paper. And then we're also going to use some Versamark embossing ink so that we can get that rose gold powder to actually stay on the card so we can melt it. Okay, so we're going to get started. We're going to start out with the watercolor paper, and we're going to take the background watercolor stamp. It takes a second to get off here. It's kind of sticky. And we're going to stick that to the acrylic block. And what we're going to do is flip that over, and we're going to take the turquoise brush powder, or Brusho powder, I'm sorry, and we're just going to put a tiny bit on the stamp. You don't need a lot of this because it's very pigmented, and it will turn out super dark if you use a lot. Then we're going to put a little dot of the Ken Oliver's Metallic Sky on the stamp, and we're going to wet it with the distress sprayer. Then we're just going to take our water brush, wet it, and then spread all of that all over the stamp until it's completely, until all the color is on the stamp basically. So then we're going to wet the cardstock with the sprayer, and then we're just going to turn this around and stamp it down. Now, when I picked this up, I really didn't see, I wanted a little bit more color along the card, so I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to try to move it around a little bit. Spray the stamp and put a little more water on it to see if it spreads around. And it really doesn't, which is fine because the card still came out fine. But I'm going to dry this with the heat tool. I'm not showing you that whole thing. It'll cut off here in a second and we'll be back. So basically we're going to do the same thing over again. I wanted a little bit more color on the card, so we'll just spread the Brusho on there again with some water, and then we're just going to spray this a little more to try to get it to move. Unfortunately, I couldn't get it to move. It may be the type of paper that I'm using. So I'm just going to dry this off, and then we're going to move forward in the process. So now we're going to put this in our Misty tool so that we can line this up, and we're going to use the lace layer of the stamp set. So I'm just going to put this even into my Misty so that I get it exactly where I want it to be. And then I'm going to use some Versamark ink to ink this up. Now, or actually I put the powder on first to keep the embossing powder from sticking to the card. Ugh, I can't talk today. So then we're going to ink that up with the Versamark ink. We're going to do it a couple times because it's watercolor paper and it is hard to sometimes get a really good impression the first time. And I got a pretty good impression here. I'm going to pull over the coffee filter and place the rose gold ink, or I'm sorry, powder on the card. Tap away all the excess, and I'm going to put away the powder. It's time to throw that filter away. It's been used way too many times. So now we're going to take the heat gun and we're just going to heat emboss this. And I believe I show you the whole process. This is sped up to, I believe, 4 times as fast. So heat embossing really doesn't happen that fast, just in case you're wondering. So now we're gonna actually ink this up with the sentiment. And I thought I was gonna use embossing powder for this, but I decided just go with a solid black. And it's gonna be the VersaFine ink that we're gonna use. I didn't show that in the beginning. I actually forgot until the end of recording that I actually used it. So right now what I'm doing is just lining up the sentiment to the lines on the Misty to make sure that everything is straight. And so it just takes me a few tries here to actually get that done. There, I finally have it. So now I'm going to get the ink. I'm going to ink that up, and I think I actually do this twice because I didn't get a really good impression the first time, and I want it to be solid black. So there's the first stamp, and then I'm going to go back and actually restamp this to make it a little darker. We want it to be really black. To make it a little shiny, I could have used embossing powder, but I didn't. So basically what we're going to do is put a little black on the craft sheet here, and we're going to add a little bit of water, and we're going to do some splashes onto the card. It was a little too gray here, so I thought I would add a little more. It was actually still gray, splattering it onto the card, but that's okay. It's all trial and error, right? So we clean that up. I'm just going to dry it off really quick with the heat gun, and then we're just going to add some sequins here. I have some rose gold sequins. I thought I would add that. Funny that I accidentally found out. Oh, here we go. I'm putting some 3M foam tape on the back for dimension. But here in a few moments, you're going to see me use a pencil eraser to actually apply the sequins, and I'm actually surprised it does so well. I don't have a tool for it, so I thought, for some reason, I just picked up the pencil to pick up a sequin, and it worked. But anyway, okay, we're adding this to the matching color cardstock, and now we're going to start adding the sequins. Or actually, we're going to apply the card first, apparently. And now we're going to add the sequins, I believe. Yes, here we go. So I've been using this pencil eraser to pick up the sequins to place on the card, and it works like great. I know there's tools to do this, but I'm like, well, if a pencil works, then we'll just use the pencil until it stops working. Maybe it's just this one pencil that actually works for. But I'm applying the rose gold sequins here. And then this will pretty much finish the card. I'm going to pick it up and show it to you. And then after this card, I'm going to show you a series of cards I made. The month of June is Pride Month for the LGBTQ community, and every year I do a set of cards in the Pride flag colors. So I'm just going to show that to you here. I know not everyone is into the Pride Month and all of that good stuff, which is fine, but you could use this month to be prideful and other things, such as being like a good parent or a good neighbor, you know, someone that takes care of animals, that rescues animals. Just be prideful of what you do in your life, and things will be great. So I want to thank you all for subscribing to my channel. Please like and spread the word, and I will hope to talk to you soon. Have a great week. Bye.